Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you're here and welcome back to Bookmas. I am just feeling so cozy today. Our setup itself is very cozy and atmospheric. We got all the good Christmassy vibes, stockings, fireplace, my little gnome friend, and my Christmas tree. And I am just in the ultimate mood to yap about some books that I love. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. I feel like the end of the year too is just a time for like reflection and looking back at what the year was kind of like. And obviously I'm going to talk more about this in my 2024 wrap up where I talk about all the books that I read this year. But today I want to talk about 24 of my favorite books from the year of 2024. It was an interesting reading year. I feel like I didn't have as many 5 stars as I was hoping for. A lot of books were just kind of mid or just like didn't hit how I thought they were going to. There were a lot of like upsets, honestly, with a lot of anticipated reads as well. And I feel like overall it wasn't really like the best reading year for me. I feel like I've progressively just been getting slumpier and slumpier as the year has gone along, honestly. But we're about to start a fresh new year. So I'm gonna get out of that mindset. And today I'm excited to talk to you about the books that did hit, the books that did meet my expectations, and some of them surpassed my expectations. And even though it wasn't the best reading year, I still had some great books that I read that I'm excited to talk about today. And all the books I'm gonna be talking about were rated a 4 stars or higher. I'm not gonna go into my exact rating, but just know these are some good books. I definitely recommend them. And starting out, they're not really in any particular order, but once we get more towards the end, I'm gonna tell you guys my top favorite books of the year. We're gonna go ahead and start with a book that I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about, but I feel like so many other people should. I got this recommendation from Rachel Catherine, actually. She's one of my favorite booktubers. I absolutely love watching her videos. And I feel like she talked about this one a while ago, but it's just like not talked about enough, and that is The Heartbreak House Share by Emily Merrill. In this one, we are following our main character, Flick, and she's in her 20s, and she thinks she kind of has like everything planned out for her life. She's dating her boyfriend, she's living with him, she thinks they're gonna get married, she has all these ideas about her life and what it's gonna be like, all these ideas about her career, and then out of nowhere, her boyfriend breaks up with her, she has to move out, she has to find a new place to live, she's starting a brand new career, and she's just going through all these sorts of changes. And the reason why this is called The Heartbreak House Share is because she ends up moving into a house share with just like absolutely random roommates. And a big part of this book is Flick making a 20s bucket list. And throughout the book, they go through it and they do those things on her bucket list. And there is some romance in here, but this book is just so much more than that, honestly. It's about finding yourself in your 20s and all the change that you go through, how relationships themselves change. And this is such a beautiful book. If you are in your 20s right now, I feel like you will definitely relate to this. I feel like it just explains the way that change is just so prevalent in your 20s, and I feel like this is just such a good read, and I feel like it could kind of make you feel like you're not alone in your 20s, and that's kind of what it did for me, so I really enjoyed this one. Number 23 is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I actually read this quite recently. This is on Kindle Unlimited, and it's a YA fantasy series, and we're following our main character, DM. I've only read the first book, so it's only her POV to start out, and in this world, gods came down, and they had children with humans, which created a new race called the Descended, and the Descended are royals. They're kind of just like high class, high society. They have powers, and then we have the humans. Now, DM herself is a healer, she's human, and one day she ends up getting the opportunity to go to the palace to do some healing there. While she's there, she learns a lot about the palace, she meets a prince, you know, but there's also a rebellion going along that DM's learning a lot about too, and she's kind of trying to figure out what side is the right side for her to be on and what she truly believes. This one also ended off on like a crazy cliffhanger, to be completely honest, which I thought was really, really good, and I'm excited to continue the rest of the series. I feel like it did start out a little bit slow, which I feel like happens a lot in the first book in a fantasy series, but once you get into it, it's just really interesting. Next up, we have Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This one is following our characters from Better Than the Movies, Liz and Wes, but in this one, we get dual POV. This is a YA rom-com, but I feel like this one definitely touched on a lot more realistic things, and in the first one, they're in high school, and this one, they are actually in college at UCLA, and this is a second chance romance, and one of our characters is definitely going through a lot. I would say this is more Wes's book than it is Liz's book. I feel like the first one was more Liz's book, to be completely honest, but it was nice to get to know Wes a little bit more, and I just love Wes as a character, honestly. Better Than the Movies was one of the first books that really got me into reading and just like falling in love with reading again, so I really enjoyed reading about their story, and Wes is actually a baseball player on the UCLA team. He's like really good, so that was interesting. It was good to like catch up with Liz and see how she's doing. Now, I will say the characters are a little bit different in this one than the first one, so if you're going into this one expecting the exact same people, I don't think you're going to be giving it a fair shot because it's years later, they've been through some things, and they've also just like grown up like everybody does. So I feel like if you go into this with an open mind, you'll definitely enjoy it. Number 21 is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, my first ever Brandon Sanderson book, and safe to say I really enjoyed it. This is a YA sci-fi series by him, and it is not included in the Cosmere. In this, we're basically following our main character Spensa, and literally the world that she lives in has been at war since before she was even born. And in this world, pilots are like their first line of defense. They're super heroic, and Spensa has always wanted to be a pilot, but for one reason or another, her family's reputation just isn't really the best. So she kind of has a harder time getting to be a pilot than the average average person. But once she does, we go to flight school and we end up learning so much more about the world than we really ever knew. We realize how high the stakes really are. And I really enjoyed Spencer. She's such a quirky and fun main character. And I feel like there was so much beautiful found family in here. And I honestly don't really read a lot of sci-fi, but this book made me want to start. His writing is so bingeable. If you are scared to go into Brandon Sanderson, I feel like this is definitely a great place for you to start. And I cannot wait to read the second book in the series. I'm definitely reading it in the month of December. Next up, we have Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series. These are all interconnected standalones and they're cowboy romances. And let me just say, I need to read more cowboy romances. I finished the fifth book, I think like a month or two ago, and I just absolutely fell in love with this world. Oh, well, okay, that's gone. Don't mind that, guys. The fireplace will be back momentarily. These are dual POV, and in this one, we are following Willa and Cade. Cade works on his family's ranch, and he's super busy, but he has a son, and he needs a nanny for the summer because he wants to make sure his son is getting the attention that he needs. So in comes Willa. She ends up being his son Luke's nanny, and the rest is kind of just history. Elsie Silver's writing is so bingeable. Like, if you need a book that's just gonna keep your mind off of anything going on in your life, and it's just fun and light and fluffy, while also sometimes touching on like real life topics and things, then her books are definitely for you. I feel like these are the perfect like summary reads too. And they're also in a small town. Who doesn't love a small town romance? Willa just also has so much personality and I feel like makes her so much more unique. I think sometimes whenever I read romance books, characters can kind of feel copy and paste, but she definitely has her own personality, which I enjoyed. For number 19, we're going to be talking about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I ended up just picking my favorite one from the series, which is the second one, Good Girl, Bad Blood. These are by Holly Jackson, and I don't know what was keeping me from reading these until this year because I know they've been out for a while. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you will know though that I am a scaredy cat, so that was probably why. But these are just so easy to read and fly through. Basically, in this series, we are following our main character, Pip, and at her school, the seniors all have to do like a senior project, and she ends up deciding to go into a case that was in her town that she feels like never really got solved. She just didn't really feel like they really knew the full story, and she ends up uncovering way more than she probably should, especially for an 18-year-old girl. And honestly, it gets kind of darker than you would expect for a YA mystery series, but I feel like it didn't get too dark for me, even though I am scared of everything. I really enjoyed this one specifically. I read in like 2 days, I think, and I just could not put it down. I thought it was so good. I really enjoyed this series. Next up, we have Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood. I believe this one came out like around this time last year, but I ended up reading it this year. This is actually her YA debut, and this is actually my favorite Allie Hazelwood book. And this one, we're following our main character, Mallory Greenleaf, and she grew up playing chess, and she was really good. She had like a bright future ahead of her, and then just because of the cards she was kind of dealt in life, she kind of had to take on more of a adult role in her family. She is only 18 in this book, and she doesn't really get to do a lot of things that the kids her age get to do. She's not going to college like her friends. She's working other jobs. She's doing things that a kid just like really shouldn't have to, but she does because she like obviously cares about her family and she stepped up for them. And she doesn't really play chess a lot anymore, but for one reason or another, she ends up going to a chess competition and she ends up playing Nolan Sawyer, who is the current chess world champion, and things just kind of go from there. I feel like I really related to Mallory. Even though I'm 23 and she's 18, I feel like she just had so many layers to her as a character, and she had a lot of depth as well. And I think for a YA book, that is a little bit more few and far between than you would expect. I think this was definitely more realistic for a YA romance, less rom-com-y, even though the romance was still really good. I think the romance was more of a subplot, and I think I kind of preferred it that way. It talked a lot about growing up and the differences of what Mallory's doing at 18 versus what her friends are, or just other people her age. And I feel like a lot of people skipped out on this one, but I highly recommend it. I thought it was really cute, really good, and just real and authentic, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, we have Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is an OG book talk book that again just took me so long to read, and I'm really glad I did. I think I was just a little bit afraid because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews, and Sally Rooney actually does not include quotations in her writing, which I was kind of afraid that I was gonna be like really put off by. And I also didn't really read a lot of literary fiction at the time, but this book was really good, and it makes sense that it gets the hype that it does. In this book, we are following our two main characters, Marianne and Connell, and it's actually set in Ireland, and it just kind of follows them as they're growing up. We start with them in high school, and then we just go from there. And this is not a romance book, even though we are following two people who are in love. It's just kind of talking about all the messy parts about being in love, but it also talks about growing up, and it's a big will they, won't they, right person, wrong time type of moment. And they just kind of keep missing each other, but they're also going through different like life stages, and they change a lot just like as who they are as people. And I feel like it was a really well done story. It talks heavily on a lot of like darker things and themes, so definitely check your trigger warnings. But I really enjoyed this, and it it made me cry. So it definitely left an impact on me. Going down to number 16, we have Just My Type by Fallon Ballard, a new author that I discovered this year. I read one of her other books and I wasn't the biggest fan, and I read this book and I really, really enjoyed it. So I really want to see how I feel about her third book. I think she came out with like a Christmas book too this year. So we'll see. Maybe I'll read that one too. I don't really know. But I really enjoyed this one. In this one, we are following our two main characters, Seth and Lana. And she's a journalist, and one day her ex from high school ends up walking into her place of work and she's like, what the heck are you doing here? And there ends up being a little bit of a rival situation where basically they're working on the same column because Lana is a notorious serial dater and Seth doesn't want to date at all. He doesn't want to settle down. So basically they end up swapping places, and they have a certain number of columns to write, and in each column they have to like do something that the other one chooses for them to do. We have a little bit of second chance. We have a little bit of rivals to lovers. It was a really great story, and honestly I feel like it should be talked about a lot more, and I feel like you definitely get the feel that they were meant to be with each other. I feel like this is one of my favorite romances of the year. Next up, we have more of like a fun rom-com romance. It's called If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. This is a part of a little princess retelling, like romance. I don't think they're interconnected, but a bunch of different authors wrote about a bunch of different princesses just like in real life. And in this one we are following Cinderella, but it's actually themed around having the plot as The Bachelor. So our main character Cindy, she actually goes on The Bachelor and she's really into fashion, and she's also plus size. So she talks a lot about that, and I think it was really cool because I feel like you don't really see a lot of plus size women, one as the main character of anything, or two, just honestly like in the Bachelor franchise at all. I'm just gonna turn this off because it keeps changing, so don't mind that. So I really liked her as the main character and what she represented, and I really loved The Bachelor of it all. I actually listened to this and I just thought it was so entertaining. I love The Bachelor, and at the time I just recently finished the most recent season of The Bachelor, which was Joey Grassaday's season, and oh my gosh, she did such a good job. Like one of the best bachelors in such a long time, and I just enjoyed this book so much. I thought it was so cute and fun and rom-com-y, and that was exactly what I was in the mood for and what I was wanting. I highly recommend this one. I definitely want to continue some other books in this little princess retelling series. I've heard the Rapunzel one is really, really good. I did read the Little Mermaid one and the Beauty and the Beast one. Those ones were good. They just weren't really like my favorites, but I really enjoyed If the Shoe Fits. Number 14 is The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This is one that I read more recently, and in this one we're following our main character Kiva, and she is the prison healer. Who would have guessed? I'm not gonna give away the plot to this one, even though it is on the back, because I recommend you go in blind, because I think it'd be more of a shocking, interesting plot line to you if you didn't read the back, because I think it just gives away a little bit too much personally. But there are trials in this book which kind of keep the book going along, and in between the trials you're just getting a lot of character interactions and just like character-based time. There's kind of like a mystery that Kiva herself is also trying to solve, which we solve by the very end, and there's such a good sense of found family. I'm not one for a character-based book, but literally I fell in love with these characters almost immediately, and I really enjoy the writing. This is also on Kindle Unlimited, or at least it was at the time that I read it too. So if you want to try out the first book in the series but you don't want to like commit to buying it, you should read it on there. The ending was absolutely insane too, and I just really enjoyed our main character Kiva and connected with her a lot. I feel like just overall with the where this story is going, I'm so excited to continue it. I'm actually reading this series with my book club right now with my friends Abby and Jordy, so I cannot wait to start the second one. These next books that I'm going to talk about were definitely contenders to go in the top 5, but they just didn't really quite make the cut like the top 5 did. Starting out with The Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. This book is dual POV. It's enemies to lovers. It's a YA fantasy book about a witch and a witch hunter. And in this, we're following our main character, Rune, who is a rich, lavish socialite by day. She really just only cares about like the vain things in life, as it seems. But by night, she is known as the Crimson Moth, who is a witch vigilante who goes off saving other witches, because in this world, just being a witch is a crime. And then our main character in this book is Gideon Sharp, and he is a part of the Blood Guard, which is literally like the head of the witch offers community. There is a lot of romance in here, and it's also set more during like a Regency-esque era, so there's like balls and like going to the theater and all of that kind of stuff. And these two characters end up getting close for each of their own agendas, but then along the way, you know, they end up liking each other a little bit more than they thought they would. I really enjoyed this. I want to read more books about witches. I feel like I've been saying that a lot recently, but this one was so good and kind of like started that whole wave of wanting to read more witchy books. And I feel like the magic system was very straightforward. I didn't find it really confusing, and I cannot wait for the second one that comes out in February. Next up, we have The Storied Life of AJ Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. This one is a literary fiction, and we're basically following our main character, AJ Fikry, and he is just a grumpy little old man. He's honestly just not doing well. He owns a bookshop, and things just aren't going well with the bookshop itself. He's sad, he's lonely, and one day this thing kind of just appears at his doorstep and his life just instantly changes for the better. This one has so many different themes, the biggest one being, in my opinion, about the human connection, just how talking with people and connecting with people can just change somebody's life. It also touches a lot on change, and honestly, the end of this book had me absolutely sobbing. There was like a little bit of a mystery element in it too, and this was such a quick read for me. The writing of this was so fast-paced. I literally read this almost in one sitting at the pool this past summer. I feel like it's just so cozy though, since he does own a bookshop, so I definitely recommend it more during like the fall and winter time. I absolutely fell in love with this book and this story, and I really loved it. The next book is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is the first book in the duology. I need to read the second one literally immediately. I don't know why it's been taking me so long to continue series. I feel like I just keep starting them and then not continuing them or not finishing them. Like, this is literally just a duology. One more book, Katie. Like, one more book and then you're there and you're finished and you're done. And you know the whole story. So in the new year, that's definitely going to be a goal for me. I really want to focus just on like finishing series that I have already started. In this book, we're following our main character, Elspeth, and it's more of like a gothic fantasy. And there are these things called the Providence cards, and whenever you touch one of these cards, you get a power, and everybody in the kingdom is really trying to collect them. Now, Elspeth herself kind of has like a monster in her mind, and it's set in this kingdom. They end up going to the castle. They're a part of like this whole like celebration, and there's like a ball and a banquet, and there's just so many different things going on. There's also way more to the magic system too that I didn't even describe, but once you get into it, you'll start to understand it as you read more and more. This is one of the most unique magic systems I have ever read about, and I just thought it was so interesting. And again, just like so incredibly unique. I really, really enjoyed this first one, and I need to read the second one immediately. Like, no joke, just need to read it immediately. Hi. Okay, 10 books left. Next up, we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. I feel like every year whenever she comes out with a new release, it's like a 90% chance that I'm going to enjoy it, and this year it was no different. And this, we are following our two main characters, Miles and Daphne, but we just get Daphne's perspective. And they've both been kind of dealt a crappy hand, to be honest. Both of them were engaged to two different people, and those two different people end up getting together behind their backs. And both Daphne and Miles lived with their ex-fiancés. And because their ex-fiancés decided to move in together, they end up moving in together just because it kind of works out that way. I feel like this book touches a lot on like self-discovery and who you are without being in a relationship and learning how to get through a breakup and like rediscover just like who you are. Daphne really lost herself in the relationship that she was in with her ex-fiance, and she ends up hanging out a lot with Miles, and not that Miles rediscovers who she is for her, obviously, but he definitely helps her a little bit along the way as she's on this path to self-discovery, and they both kind of help heal each other's hearts too. It's just a very good story. I also feel like you would think it's not going to be realistic because of the crazy plot line that it starts out with, but it definitely is. I just love her books, and they always just talk about deeper things. I honestly think that I want to reread this soon, just because whenever this came out, I don't know if I was specifically in the mood for it, even though I did really enjoy it a lot. So I feel like I want to reread it and give it another chance, but I definitely enjoyed both characters and I really enjoyed it. Book number 9 is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Now, just like Emily Henry, Abby Jimenez kind of has like a realistic element to her romance books that I just really enjoy. I will say Abby Jimenez has more rom-com-y elements than Emily Henry does in my personal opinion, but I feel like I need those realistic elements to truly relate to our characters and just kind of like get them on a different level. And I feel like this one literally just like saw through me as a person and had so many of my own thoughts on the page. And this one, we are following our two main characters, Brianna and Jacob, and it is dual POV. Brianna and Jacob both work at the same hospital, and Jacob just started working there. They're up for the same high up position, and Brianna's kind of upset, so she doesn't really like Jacob at first, and she feels like he's kind of like standoffish, and Brianna is a very bubbly, outgoing kind of person, and Jacob just is not. He's a very anxious person. He's very quiet, and it takes a little bit to understand him, and takes a little bit for him to come out of his shell and for people to really get to know him. Brianna soon figures out that Jacob didn't really want the job at all, and they squash all the beef that they had, and Brianna ends up taking the time to really get to know him. I feel like Jacob's chapters really described anxiety in such a realistic way. Like, I have really never seen it depicted in a book before. I just related so much to Jacob as a character, and I thought that this story was so beautifully done. I love their love, and they just felt so real to me. And there was also a little bit of my favorite trope in here. I just really enjoyed this book. It was so beautiful. I would love to reread it or maybe listen to it very, very soon, because honestly, this might be one that I just go back to for years and years and years and like still absolutely love and adore. Number 8 is Daydream by Hannah Grace. I enjoyed this book way more than I thought I was going to. This is the the third book in the Maple Hills Interconnected Standalone series. First one is Icebreaker, second one is Wildfire, and in this one, Daydream, we are following our two main characters, Hallie and Henry. And this is dual POV. Our main character, Henry, is a hockey player at his college, but I wouldn't say this is a hockey romance. I would say the first one is. But in this one, we focus a lot less on hockey than we do just these characters and who they are and their lives. Henry was in the other two books, and I had kind of been waiting for his books since the first one came out, so I was really excited to pick this up, and it really did not disappoint. He's the new hockey team captain this year, and he's also an art major, and he's kind of going through a lot, trying to figure out who he is and what he really wants to do just as a person. And then we have our main character, Hallie, who just got out of a really toxic relationship, and she's just a cozy gal. She loves the things that we love. She loves her cat, baking, reading, writing, just really all the wholesome, cozy things in life. They end up meeting, they started as friends, and it slowly ends up progressing to more. And let me just say, if you did not enjoy the other two books, like even at all, I think you would enjoy this one. This one has significantly less spice, and I feel like the spice that's in here actually goes along with the plot, which not that I'm like a spice hater, I feel like you just need a little bit more tension sometimes. And I feel like this book did that for me. I feel like these two characters, the way that they thought, literally felt like they were opening my mind and just taking it straight from it. Like I have never truly felt so seen by both of these characters. I just thought this was so well done, and this is another one of those books that's way more character based than I normally enjoy, but I honestly ate up every second. I read this a lot quicker than I thought I was going to. I just really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend this book, especially if you didn't enjoy the other two in the Interconnected Standalone series. I feel like you will really, really enjoy this. Next up, we have two books from my favorite series, I would say, that I read this year. And again, these two are in no typical order, but I have Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas and Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. These are both a part of the Throne of Glass series that I finished this year. In this series, we're following an assassin named Selena Sardothian, and she is going through trials to become the king's champion, aka the king's assassin. And the story just kind of goes along from there. That's all I'm really gonna say, because I think there are so many spoilers out there, and I am not gonna be one of the people who spoils it for you. Let me say, if you do want to read this series, get off of social media, because like many others, I got so much spoiled for me. We're gonna start out by talking about book 6, Empire of Storms. This book was so good. This was a part of the tandem read, which you don't have to do in this series, but I opted in and did. And it was such a good experience as a whole, but this book specifically, there are so many things that happen, so many funny things that I just am thinking of right now, and I'm literally like wanting to giggle to myself. The ending of this was also just truly heartbreaking, and thinking about it now, I want to cry, and that makes it one of my favorite books of the year. Like I absolutely loved this book. And then we have the 8th and final installment in the series, which was Kingdom of Ash. This book evoked so much emotion in me, just the end to the entire story with some of my favorite characters that I've ever really read about. And I may or may not have another book in this series in my top 5, just saying, but oh my gosh, these two books were they are just so good. My second and third favorites from the series. Okay, those were books 6 and 7. Now we're gonna get into my top 5 books of the year. These are ranked unlike the ones that I was just talking about. And I tried my best to choose only one book if it was in a series, which I successfully did, so I'm proud of myself. Starting out with book number 5, we have Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is volume 4. Now, Heartstopper as a whole was something that I found this year, and I just grew to love Nick and Charlie, our two main characters, so much, and their friends so much. This book is about Nick and Charlie, who go to an all-boys school, and Charlie is openly gay at the school, and he got bullied for it a lot last year. And this year, we're in a new school year, and Nick and Charlie end up being in the same class, and they end up becoming really fast friends. And then one thing kind of leads to another. They end up falling in love. It is just such a beautiful story, and it is YA, and I feel like it also just touches on so many different things that aren't in other books. This one specifically, the 4th one, this one is my favorite. Personally, I just absolutely loved this story as a whole, but this one specifically. And also, I just have to say, watching the show just makes the experience of reading this series just even greater. Like, being able to see them on screen is unlike any other. Now, these are graphic novels. I haven't said that yet, but they are graphic novels. And honestly, you could probably read all of these in one day if you really wanted to. You could just sit down and binge them. So they're super fast paced, and the stories in here are just so real and realistic, while also being cute and fun. If you want that feeling of your first love with some more real elements, these are definitely going to be for you. Coming in at number 4, we have Just for the Summer by by Abby Jimenez. This is the third book in the Interconnected Standalone Part of Your World series, and it comes right after yours truly, and this one came out this year, and oh my gosh, this one was so good. It's dual POV, and we're following our two main characters, Justin and Emma. I will say, if you're gonna read this, I would definitely read the other two before you read this one, just because this one connects all three books together on kind of a different level than the other two connected together already. Emma and her friend travel for their job, and they get to choose where they get to go, and Emma ends up meeting this guy named Justin online, and it's because they both have like this same curse, which is all about them being the person that somebody dates before that somebody finds like their one. And it's happened to them both multiple times, so Emma and her friend end up deciding to move to where Justin lives so that Emma and Justin can date and they can cancel out each other's curses, which I know it sounds kind of crazy, but going in for a romance book, it's kind of like a fun and different plot, and I really enjoyed that part of the story. Obviously, that part is not very realistic, but the rest of this honestly talks about a lot of real things that are going on, just like yours truly did. Emma and Justin both, for different reasons, have very complicated relationships with their mothers, so there's a lot of talk about that. They relate to each other on like a different level because of that as well, and Justin also ends up taking on a really big role in his family. So not only is there that, but you also just have Justin as a person. He is so thoughtful. He is an acts of service king. I absolutely love the way that he treated Emma, the way that he was so patient with her, so thoughtful. He always followed up with her, made sure she was okay, and I feel like Emma just personally too, with all the stuff going on with her mom, was just going through a lot and was just trying to figure out like what she truly wanted in her life, and I feel like this book was just so good. And it's not just a silly little cutesy romance for the summer. Like, it's just not. This is so misleading, I will be honest, even though it is a really cute cover. This one had me tearing up. This one had me feeling a lot of things, and if you haven't read it yet, you definitely should. Coming in at number 3 is Reckless by Elsie Silver. I love this book so much. Like I was talking about earlier with Heartless, her writing is just so bingeable, and I feel like this book really just came to me at the right time, I guess. I read it at the right time. This book is the 4th book in the Chestnut Springs series, and I love this story so much. It is following Theo and Winter. It is dual POV. Winter is kind of like cold-hearted, but there's so many other layers to her that a lot of people just don't take the time to understand. And Theo is a bull rider. He's kind of known as a player, even though he's really not that guy anymore, and I feel like they're both known as things to the public and to their families even and friends that they just really aren't and that they don't really identify with. There's also a trope in here that a lot of people don't like, but it is done so well in this book. I will literally defend this book to my grave. Like, it is so good. I love their story. I love their love. Like I've said about other people, this book was just so well done and I really loved it. Don't want to say anything else because I don't want to give anything away, but if you've read this book, I could literally talk with you for hours about it. Coming in at number 2 is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This book is following our main character, Clementine West, and her aunt, who she was really close with, recently passed away, and her aunt gives her her old apartment in the will. So she ends up moving into her aunt's old apartment, and one day she walks in, and the apartment's set 7 years in the past, and there's this guy there, and she's like, who the heck is this guy? They meet, they talk, they get to know each other, and then suddenly, the next time she walks in, it's back in the present day. And the guy is gone. She has no idea where he went, has no idea how to like contact him or anything of that sort. A few days go by, she's like, okay, that was weird. I have no idea what happened. And then the next time she goes in, she's back 7 years in the past. So it kind of just goes back and forth, back and forth. She really never knew whenever it was going to happen. It was just very at random. Now, not only is this happening in Clementine's life, she's also dealing with the grief of losing her aunt, who she was incredibly close with. And she's just dealing with a lot of different like life things going on, making choices and growing out of the old her of who she was. This book is also the best book with the right person, wrong time trope that I think I've ever read. It is just so beautifully done, because the only reason why they can't be together is because they literally like don't live in the same year and just the same time in general. And I don't know, the romance in here was so good. I feel like she adds the perfect amount of spice, in my personal opinion, that still keeps the tension there, still keeps me like wanting more for the couple, and I just absolutely love them and their little love story. It is so beautifully done. And the guy in this one too, he's so swoon-worthy. I absolutely love and adore him so much. There were so many elements of this book that just felt real too. Like the dialogue felt real, the way she described things, I could just really just picture everything, and it was just so well done. I could talk about this book for so long too. If you have not read this yet, please, honestly, do yourself a favor and read this. Coming in at number 1, my most favorite book of this year has to be Queen of Shadows, which is book number 5 in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. This was my first 5-star of the series, and I don't think I will ever stop thinking about this book. I feel like this one just truly starts out with a bang and then just never stops. There are so many things that happen in this book, so much action, so much development for all of our characters and just for different relationships going on and different dynamics with them. I feel like in the book before this, Heir of Fire, you get introduced to a lot of new characters, and this was the book where I really started to love all of those new characters and really started to like develop a new relationship towards them and new feelings towards them. I really can't say too much because obviously I'm not going to give away what happens in the 5th book of a series. All I have to say is I read the entire series in 2 reading vlogs this past year, and if you have not watched those yet, please definitely do. They're spoiler free with spoilers at the very end of each video, and I feel like watching those videos is just going to be the best way to understand my experience with this series while I was reading it. I truly have never really read anything like this series, especially like this book right here. I love this book so much, and the connection of the characters and just everything that has to do with them. There's just so many good scenes of this book, like I was talking about with Empire of Storms too. These are just the 3 best books from the series, and I could not talk more highly about the Throne of Glass series. I love it so much. All right, guys, those are my favorite books of 2024. Go ahead and comment down below your favorite book of 2024, and if you made it until this far in the video, go ahead and comment the red heart emoji so I know who the real ones are who watched till the end. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want to keep up with me on the daily, go ahead and follow my Instagram, my TikTok, and my Goodreads especially. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading in real time, these are always going to be linked down below in every single video. And I think that's it for me today. I love you guys so much. I hope you're enjoying Bookmas so far, and also hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye guys, happy holidays. Kind of looks like I'm wearing the hat. Love that. We're gonna start about casually just waiting for this ad because I wanted to have a cozy fireplace ambiance, but it's fine. Almost there, guys. Just a few more seconds. All right, there we go. That is just so cozy and cryptmassy. What? Ooh. Ew. Peace.